in the federal government that's around us now that we are witnessing. This president has made no bones about anytime you crossed him, he will cross you, and not in good ways. All right. He will attack and do harm or whatever way that he can to stop you. We live by standards given by the Lord, not rulers determined by people. For this reason, Saul did not have the moral authority to have David killed. That would go against God's injunction about killing innocent people, which even the king is meant to obey and uphold. God's laws is for everybody, from the king down to the queen, from the queen down to the servant, from servant to servant. God's laws is for everybody. God's thou shalt not kill. David is identified as Saul's servant. By the use of this term, Jonathan describes David as a faithful member of Saul's court, just like the servant in verse 1. All right, let's go to 4. Because he has not sinned against thee, and because his works have been toward thee very good, Daddy, Saul. This is Johnny talking about David. David ain't did you no harm. David has did good for him. Look what he did, killing Goliath. David, you see what I'm saying? 3 words mean toward you, for his benefit. The works that have been very good refers to all the noble acts of David have been done to the service of the king. This included not just military service, commentary, but also playing the harp to soothe Saul at his times of distress. I mentioned that earlier. David had did good things toward Saul, but Saul's jealousy and rage was at the forefront. Okay, and he wanted to kill David and had given his son, Jonathan, the very one talking to his daddy now, to kill him. How about that? Kill him, asking Jonathan, who's close to David, to kill him. Look at the enemy, how he works. Satan is very treacherous, isn't he? All right. For he did put his life in the hands and slew the Philistines, and the Lord wrought a great salvation to all of Israel. Look at that. David did an awesome job of killing through the help of God, of killing Goliath, and brought a great victory for the Jewish people. But that was not good enough for Saul. Saul's jealousy still wanted him killed. Thou sawest it and didst rejoice. Daddy, Saul, this is John talking, you saw it. You saw what he did. How about that? Look at today's actions that's taking place in government. This thing is taking place, and folks just want to deny it. They would not deny him. You must understand that you as a person of Christ, you as a believer in Christ, you must be above the evil and deceptions of the devil. He would use you, use anybody. Thou sawest and didst rejoice. Wherefore, let's go to rhetorical questions. Wherefore, then wilt thou sin against an innocent blood to slay David without cause? How about that? What about you in a position of leadership? Would you do something to somebody without cause? Would you? Would you do something to somebody without cause? Without even a reason for doing it? How about that? All right. Wherefore thou sin against innocent blood to slay David without cause? Do you do something to somebody without cause? Huh? Would you? All right. Okay, blood refers to the life force, Genesis 9:4, life, and thus innocent blood refers specifically to David's manner of living. David had acted faithfully as a servant in the court of Saul. David had never given Saul a cause for Saul's anger and retribution. The reason why Saul is feeling like that is because he's jealous. He's jealous of the potentials. He's jealous of what David is doing. He's jealous because those women are singing that song when they come back from battle. But how many Saul has killed and how many David has killed. All those things are fictitious favorite, all stuff in his mind. That's how you must understand how people behave. There's a difference between a spiritual mind and an evil carnal mind. They do not mix. They just do not make sense. All right? My youngest son unlikely friendship. This is something we want to add in for you, with unlikely friendship. You stick with us, and we'll be through here shortly. We are just about 35 minutes into the lesson, and we hope that you are following along with us. My younger son always struggled with his need to be popular. After getting in trouble at school for related issues, one day when he was in 8th grade, he came home from school with a note. This time he had been suspended for fighting. I felt deflated. We had just moved to a new town, and I was really hoping for a fresh start. However, when he told me more, of a glimmering of particular pride crept in. He had come across a crowd of people surrounding two students who were fighting, and the one who was substantially bigger had the other in a headlock. As the bigger boy pummeled the smaller one, my son had jumped on and immediately roughly pulled the bigger kid off the smaller one. Despite the suspension, I was proud of my son. Months later, he came home with an invitation to be rescued student birthday party. To this day, they are fast friends. That is similar to a reverse mirror image of 1 Samuel 19. There the friendship came first, and the rescued fellow followed. God rescued us while we were his enemies, Romans 5:10, realizing that we are under conditions, would you be willing to stand up for him at the risk of losing relationship, jobs, or even life? What a question. God stood up for us and died on the cross. His enemies, which were the Jewish people and the Roman soldiers, killed Jesus at the insistence of his own people, and the Pharisees and the churches and the preachers and the teachers, all those people at the time had Jesus killed. Jesus stood up for us and saved us, gave us a return trip to connect with God. Now, will you stand up for Jesus? Will you stand up for Jesus? Will you, at the risk of losing your job, your home, and all that you have, will you stand up for Jesus? I'm sitting here in my studio in the privacy of my home, broadcasting and talking these things, but will Freddie Howard be of their character to stand up out there in the streets for Jesus Christ and do what is right for Jesus Christ, and be in danger of losing your job, be in danger of losing your Social Security or your retirement check? That's real, huh? Will you be able to do that? If the government said, Brother Howard, we're going to cut off your Social Security check, we're going to cut off your retirement check, if you don't stop this on the radio broadcasting of Sunday school about God, we're going to cut that off. What do you think Freddie Howard should do? He should do what is right. Not that he will do what is right, or should do what is right, but that is in his heart to do what is right. Standing up for Jesus. How about you? A clear picture. What would you do? All right. The aftermath. Look at the aftermath. Now, after all these things are taking place, the aftermath, what's taking place? What's going to be happening? Even after Jonathan went to his daddy and talked to him. Daddy, leave Saul alone. Daddy, leave David alone. Huh? David ain't did nothing to you, Daddy. Come on. Let him know. He done did stuff for the country, did stuff for you. But let's see what the aftermath is. And Saul hearkened unto the voice of Jonathan. And would he listen at them? And Saul swore, and the Lord liveth, he shall not be slain. Okay? Jonathan's argument had desired effect. Hearkening unto means to heed, that in both to hear and to act in accordance with what he said. Example, Genesis 21:12. Similarly, the Exodus from Egypt was initiated because God not only heard but acted on the groaning of the children of Israel. What is taking place in this country now? The groaning and moanings of people under COVID-19 and under the leadership of this present administration and what's taking place in this country today. There are some people crying out to God. There are some people crying out to God. God is listening. He is not in a vacuum. God is listening. And you don't know what he's doing, the action that he's taking. You don't know where is God's plan is. You cry out to God, ask for help, and he will help. All right. Jonathan's intervention thus culminated in Saul's making a vow that David would not be put to death. Making a vow or taking an oath is equivalent to making covenant. It's an agreement. Deuteronomy 4:31. It is quieting to Saul credit. It is quite to credit to God. Say credit. Let's get that straight. It is quite to credit Saul's credit that he relented from his own call for David's execution. Although Saul had a history of rebellion against the Lord, example, you remember when he told them to go out and destroy everything, and he told them that he had, and when he's talking to the priest could hear the cows and the calves more hollering in the background. That indicated that Saul had not did what he said, that he was lying. That's a question that we have today with leadership in positions. Small leadership or big leadership, about lying, openly lying. The truth, a lie, and the truth has a way of rectifying itself and coming out as to what it ought to be. All right. Although Saul had a history of rebellion against the Lord, example, in this case he honored God by heeding wise counsel and choosing not to sin against David. The Lord expected the king to keep his vow. All right, Numbers 30:2, and also Matthew. All right, God, you say you're going to do something. God expects you to do it. Class, that vow must be kept. While Ecclesiastes 5:4-6 reminds the reader that breaking a vow angers the Lord. By swearing that David would live, Saul bound himself to do all in his power to protect David, even though he had been first wanting him killed. The unbreakable vow. I had a friend who had been married a long time. Her husband was a God-loving man who took care of her and their family, but the various reason my friend had spent years building up resentment against him. One day, she said she intended to leave him. How could I tell him I wouldn't support his decision because he was wrong? I prayed silently as she poured out her heart, and then I blurted out, what if it were cancer? She looked at me blankly and said, would you leave him then? Of course she wouldn't, she said. Why not? I pressed her. She broke down as it dawned on her that she had vowed to be with him not just in sickness and in health, but in bad times and good times as well as good. Breaking this vow would mean sinning against her husband and God. Whatever God has put together, let no man put asunder. In good time, and the vows that are taken after marriage, they are sacred. They are not to be broken. It is a serious commitment. How about you? What about your marriage vows? Where are they right now in your relationship? Where are they? Jonathan cautioned the same to Saul. Thankful, just like my friend, Saul saw reason and realized his mistake. The choice is for us too. Will we honor our vows to honor God? Okay, we're coming down to the end of this lesson now. Reconciliation. What is reconciliation? That means reconnecting, re-establishing a bond, the grounds of friendship, the handshake, or whatever it is. But you finally come to a reconciliation. You reckon your differences and you join yourselves together. When Jesus Christ died on the cross, his reconciliation rejoined, brought us back to Jesus Christ. I use the term retired, but I mean retie. You know what? Reconnected, okay? Us to Jesus, or to God our Father. Because Adam and Eve had broke that relationship and destroyed it. But God, through his Son, Jesus, who died on the cross, gave his life as a sacrificial lamb and reconnected us, tied us back together with God. And Jonathan called David, and Jonathan showed him all those things. And Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as in the past. David emerged from his pre-arranged hiding place after hearing Jonathan call. As promised is 1 Samuel 19:3. Jonathan reported to David everything that had happened. This would have included specifically Saul's change of heart and his vows not to put David to death. For David to return to Saul's presence indicates that David believed Jonathan completely, no longer